PCEF, the Portland Clean Energy Fund, with the guy in charge. Stay tuned. Wow. You know that this is your favorite show about Portland, the tea, and where the party's at. But let's be real. The party was at the federal level this week. Outstanding. You could not write this in a movie and have it be taken seriously. Of course, you all know by this point, Biden out, Kamala in, and people did not fight it. Of course, there's some people who are on the fence. We're waiting for that Obama endorsement, unless it happened since I last checked the news. And I've seen some complaints because of people who are very adamant about one issue. They want to see Kamala go harder in that area. But it's not like people are all, up in arms about this. People have really rallied behind unprecedented fundraising. It's really exciting to have a candidate that we're all excited about. And the memes, oh my goodness. If you haven't been on social media this week, just see the memes. They are so good. And I am here for it. I am here for a multiracial, child-free boss to be getting in that White House. So I'm not gonna hide that from you all. I'm about it. But this show is all about focusing on local happenings. And we are just like exactly a month away from the filing deadline to run for office here in Portland. So if you are thinking about becoming the next mayor of Portland or one of the first in the new city council, 12 spots, so many, you should get together to get your filing so that you can run. All right. Well, you know that I'm here to go behind the scenes and tell you how things really work in the city by asking the people who really work them. So when we are back, Sam Baraso. Hey everyone, this is Sam Baraso from the Portland Clean Energy Fund, and not just from the original and still program manager. Sam, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opening, and I think Obama did give his endorsement.
It keeps getting better and better. I can't wait. Oprah's going to be there. Celebrity. I mean, it's going to be, I'm trying to get to the Democratic National Convention right now. So yes, I know. It's going to be worth it. So many things to ask you. And first, I was so excited that you were willing to come on Portland Tea Party because I hear so much about PCEF in the news, but I don't hear a lot of people interviewing you. Do you get a lot of interview requests, or do people just bypass getting the facts straight from you?
I think I'll say this, I like to stay behind the scenes and make sure the work gets done. So I think in this moment where absolutely we're the center of a lot of news, my job is in making sure we move everything forward. So there's certainly interest, and I oftentimes, given the political nature of it, I think that my job is keeping the work moving forward.
I appreciate that. And I think the city's so lucky to have you, but let's tell them why. So back up, what is the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund?
Okay, so the fund passed by Portland voters in November 2018 at its core is about investing in climate action. So the fund it gets resources by a tax on multi-billion-dollar corporations.
And by resources, you mean money?
Money,
okay.
Funding. So it is funded. We have a fund.
Yes.
The fund is generated by a tax on billion-dollar corporations. Mm-hmm. And we get to spend those resources on addressing climate change and serving those that are most in need of those services.
So let's back up to billion-dollar corporations. So I don't pay this tax as a Portlander personally.
Correct.
Okay. But the Amazons, the Walmarts, the Targets that are still here, the Nikes, they are paying 1% of the business they do in Portland because it's billion-dollar globally, right?
That's correct. So they have to be a billion-dollar corporation globally, nationally at least. and they pay the tax on 1% of their Portland sales. And while I don't have line of sight into the specific entities and companies that pay, I think it's fair to say we can take a good guess at who those are. But that's correct. It does exclude basic goods like groceries, medicine, utilities. That's correct. Yeah.
So that money then goes in your fund, and then where does it go?
And then through several different avenues, we invest in programs that are addressing climate and climate change in ways that are directly benefiting Portlanders. So we can talk about some of those programs, but it moves out through private businesses that are administering our programs, through grants, through nonprofits that are getting to do the work, as well as through other government entities, other agencies within the city, within the region that are addressing climate efforts in their work.
And I want to clarify, and correct me if this is off in any way, that in the charter of PCEF, as we call it for short, if you're an insider, the money goes into this fund, and it is specifically for projects that create clean energy that benefit Portlanders, centering the Portlanders on the front lines of climate change. So this is not just money that goes into the city to pay for whatever the city needs, which I think a lot of people have suggested it should or are confused about.
Yeah, correct. I think what I will say is one, the scale of work when you do on climate is large. And so there are many actors in that, including the city, that has a critical role to play. And so, yes, it goes in and is specifically intended to invest in climate action, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and in doing so, prioritizing our frontline communities, those that are facing the worst and the brunt of climate change.
Let's just give a few specific examples of like what would be a program that's, maybe that you've already granted that is like exactly what we mean by this.
Oftentimes we talk about our bread and butter work. And when I think about that bread and butter, it is going into people's homes. It is adding insulation to their floors, their attic, replacing the heating and ventilation and cooling systems so that we've got much more efficient systems so that we can reduce our energy use, reduce our energy bills, put more money into people's pockets, and in doing so, also reduce our climate emissions or our greenhouse gas emissions.
So can I, as a homeowner, just call up and be like, PCEF, can you come do this to my house?
We're getting a little bit better and scaling up, but you directly, not yet. But soon you will be able to call in and see whether you qualify.
Yeah.
And you may qualify. A lot of it is focused on income in the household income.
Yeah.
But in about a year and a half's time, yes, you will be able to call in and say, hey, this is my story. Can I qualify? And someone say, yep, you qualify, or no, you don't. And they'll follow up and get you connected to contractors.
They don't qualify because I can afford to do those things. I mean, I want to say that the qualifications now have to do with people who can't afford, something like even an air conditioner. After the heat dome, you all became the main distributor of air conditioning units to people who absolutely cannot afford that.
Yeah, and I think as of last week, we distributed over 10,000 portable heat pump cooling units in the city. So well over our target to hit our goal, likely in less than 5 years.
All right, let's do something that's maybe less of a gray area than air conditioning, because obviously there's things going on, but you're prioritizing like the human need. The tree canopy, I think, is so interesting because we're talking like what, $60 million toward tree canopy?
Even more.
Okay. Big priority. And so the reason that matters is because it cools the city, it helps cool homes. But the thing that shocked me is seeing the overlay of places with tree canopy and the economic, like the income of residents. And it's like exactly the same. Like the poorest areas have no tree canopy and the richest areas have the most. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone feels it. If you drive through places in Northeast Portland, inner Southeast, Lads Edition, you have these beautiful tree-lined streets, 6-foot wide tree planting strips, trees that are going well over the roadway that bring a lot of shade and a whole host of other benefits to the region. I mean, this is just a way that we have developed as a region where the wealthiest communities and neighborhoods have the biggest investment in that infrastructure, and that infrastructure being trees. And so, as you noted, when we talk about areas in East Portland, areas in North Portland, we're seeing during heat wave events, some of those areas where you have all that blacktop, more of that pavement, less of those trees, something like 20, 25 degrees hotter than areas that are being shaded by that tree cover.
Wow.
And so our objective there in investing over 100 million in tree canopy over the next 5 years is to plant thousands more trees, not only plant them, establish them. So we're talking 5 years of watering, early pruning, make sure these trees get out right, and then coming back and maintaining those existing trees.
That's the controversial thing, is that historically in Portland, the city can plant a tree in your median if you're a homeowner, but you're responsible for maintaining it. And what I learned actually on a tree walk with PCEF from Friends of Trees, a great nonprofit, is that unless you're a certified arborist, you're probably doing it wrong. Like maybe cut off the top of the tree so it doesn't hit the electric poles, and like you killed the tree essentially.
It's a thing. It's a thing, and that's correct. Oftentimes, it takes a lot of work, and pruning trees does take professionals to do that and make sure that our trees grow healthy. I mean, if we plant the right tree species in the right place, those trees will last 100 years. And we're thinking forward on that because we do need to be planting our trees today so that in 20, 30 years, we have that tree canopy, which is going to be that much more important as the impacts of climate change are playing out. We're feeling them now and are going to continue to play out.
And that's a great example of, PCEF updated its charter a couple of years ago because I think the powers that be saw that only granting through nonprofits actually isn't going to get the job done as fast as will be helpful. So it's really important to have some funds that could go to or through something like Portland Parks and Recreation because they have the infrastructure to go out and actually do that work.
Correct. When we talk about those in between spaces between the our homes, our apartment buildings, and that street and those areas, a lot of those areas are regulated by the city, and the city primary has a role to permit and to make things happen, to keep those things going forward. And so in a partnership and collaboration with community, with our urban forestry division within Portland Parks and Recreation, we are not only planting thousands of trees, at least 15,000 trees, and establishing them, we're also going to be taking over, I think you hinted on this, taking over maintenance of existing street trees over the next 5 years. And it's going to be a work in progress. This is something that is new for the city, and other cities such as San Francisco have done this, where the city has taken on that responsibility from the adjacent property owner, and it provides a great equitable benefit to the community, a great climate benefit, and a resiliency benefit. And it's something that also is meaningful. Pruning trees that are large, that have significant work done, can be in the thousands of dollars for some of these. And that's something that, given the kind of asset and infrastructure it is for our community, the city should seriously be talking about, and we are.
I appreciate that you all are thinking very short term, like what can we do quickly? And I know some of those funds had to move right away, but you're also thinking long term about how can we keep these trees around for 100 years. Let's hear a totally different example of a program, because some people might be like, trees, that's, what's another one that is a program that PCEF is funding?
Yeah, so another one we just recently brought through City Council, and it's one that hits many of our lives. Those of us with children, is going to be our climate friendly schools program. So when we're investing and have intergovernmental agreements with about the 7 school districts with that sit within the city of Portland. So Portland Public Schools, Centennial, David Douglas, Park Rose, Reynolds. So many of the school districts. And if we think about our schools, for the most part, most of our schools were built 50, 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah.
Very few of our schools, with the exception of those that have been recently renovated, have air conditioning. And as folks can feel around in the past couple of weeks, the 100-degree weather, etc. We're having summer school, early school in September at the late end of the year, where
and it's hot for longer. Yeah,
it is getting hot for longer, and so being able to invest those resources in our climate friendly schools program to both bring in modern, efficient heating, cooling, ventilation systems in our schools, but also removing blacktop from playgrounds so we have more of a natural environment for folks to play in, but also to reduce some of that heat island effect. So that's another really exciting program that is a collaboration with our school districts as well as students, because we do have a student-led initiative component.
That's very cool. It gets the community involved, and then they understand. I mean, it's a way for kids to learn about climate and feel some
agency.
Yes, to be able to do something, because I know it can create a lot of despair in young people, well, and older people too.
But I would say that's the place where we hear it the most, and it's something that we want to make sure they understand that they have agency in.
That's great.
Yeah.
I want to say, first of all, that it counts to people without children too, because these are our future
Yeah,
leaders.
yeah,
and when I'm
yeah.
retiring, I need them to make sure that the environment is good. So let's talk a little bit about the money, because we just dropped like a huge figure, like $100 million going to this.
Yeah.
When PCEF first started, what was the projection of how much money that PCEF would have to work with?
Yeah, so when we first came into the city, I first came into the city as the first employee on the program. We were projected to bring in 50 to 70 million. And it was one, it's a wide range. Two, I think want to just acknowledge that we haven't had a funding mechanism like that within this city. So I want to give a little grace to the folks that made those initial estimates, but 50 to 70 million
Okay. Each year or
annually.
Correct. Okay. And then COVID happens. We all as Portlanders started buying more from maybe the big box stores or the services that could get us the goods we wanted. Local businesses were hit, but not the ones, they weren't the ones paying this tax. And the estimates had to be revised. So what happened next?
Several times. I think, one, COVID was a challenging time, and billion-dollar corporations, as with many others of us, got to file extensions, got to do a whole host of things. And so as we were first just seeing the early revenues, estimates were getting just updated. And I think we are finally landing closer and closer to the real number, which is going to be close to 200 million a year. So substantially more. I also want to acknowledge pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, as you just acknowledged, that there was a big shift in our consumption habits. We've gone from, substantially consuming more locally to substantially consuming more online. And that is not a small shift.
Yeah.
That shift went from something in the realm of 9% to 13-14% online consumption. And a lot of that, I think we can guess, is happening at big box retailers, not necessarily our boutique retailers, which wouldn't be subject to the tax.
Right. So what happened was in September 22, the charter got updated,
Correct.
right? And then, and full disclosure, I am a consultant to PCEF and also a coach to the staff. The charter was updated, and now you were mandated by city council, or highly suggested, to create a plan for the next 5 years of how you were going to spend $750 million projected to come in. That estimate also got updated by like $400 million. And so we spent like 9 months very quickly making a plan for 20-ish programs. And then the thing I really appreciated about your process is that there were so many checks and balances to keep community centered. So we did roundtables with like every category of, that people had to apply for, but people who represent like every category of climate and population hit by climate.
Correct.
All of the tree nonprofits, all of the regenerative agriculture, people who are like the players in that game. Housing, right? Affordable housing. Yeah, that's like the biggest program.
Several roundtables focused on housing.
Yeah, and On Schedule came out with a plan that did get through city council. Yes, unanimously, which is a huge feat, y'all. And so that's now the plan, and you've been able to add to this, and still even right now. And I must mention the committee, that if you saw the episode with Megan Horst, you also have a committee that is there to represent the community, and they have become really savvy and fierce over the years, in my opinion, about making sure the community is centered, even as so many other entities try to sort of get their hands on the money.
Correct. So one, yes, $750 million plan unanimously. And two, incredible community involvement. Thank you. And just a big kudos to staff that were engaged in that, the mastermind of that, June Reyes, that was on our team then. And then three, we continue to do more. And I think, in acknowledgement of what that plan was, listen, addressing climate change, how we do that, that's nothing new. I mean, I think that our basic understanding of what we need to do, how we need to decarbonize our households, decarbonize our transportation systems, invest in more carbon sequestration in our green infrastructure, in our trees, in our urban forests, is all understood. And so, but how we did that with community, how we engage folks, how we make sure that everyone is part of that fabric, and that in that we are centering those that have been historically excluded by way of the jobs, by way of the benefits, has been the core part of getting it right. And I'm really excited that I think we got I think we got it right, and now it's pulling it all.
And I think the current RFP, request for proposal, is just leveling it up again in that you're sort of training other entities how to work with community in a very authentic way. And so the current one is looking for very big shovel ready projects, but the entities pitching on it, maybe it's the Bureau of Transportation, maybe it's the Port of Portland, they have to be meaningfully incorporating a community engagement, like community nonprofit entity, right? In order to qualify.
Correct. And I should acknowledge that. And that was developed in close collaboration with the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund Committee, which has been our partners, our community checkpoint, our voice of community in helping us navigate and tease out how we implement this program and stay accountable to the core of the folks that said, yes, we're going to put this on the ballot, and all the folks that said, yes, we want to see this happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sam, I could talk to you for hours, but will you stay for tea?
I will stay for tea.
All right. When we're back, the tea on what makes a good grant proposal. I tried to make the like intros and stuff like very 80s throwback, which I feel is sort of Portland.
Yeah, I feel that's right.
Okay. So there's a lot of nonprofits in Portland. There's a lot of community-based organizations and other entities that would love to have some PCEF money. Right? So what are y'all looking for? And I'm sure this is going to be true for a lot of, there's lessons here if you're looking for funding from a foundation or any type of fund. What are you looking for in a grant proposal? Some essentials, like what gets you above the first round, basically. Follow
the directions. Absolutely. I mean, the core is that in every project, we have to be clearly reducing meaningful emissions reductions, but we are always looking for more. I mean, and I think so. I always am like, let's do the bread and butter. Let's make sure we are getting internal combustion engines off the road and electrifying those. Let's make sure that we are going into people's homes and both doing our energy retrofits, making them more comfortable. But as we do that, how do we think more about the fact that we're doing this work now as Portland? We have a tremendous amount of resources coming in from the Inflation Reduction Act that we are leveraging here locally at substantial scales. And in doing all of that, we have to think about how do we grow this economy? How do we grow the folks that are working in this space? Because it is going to take, to get to our climate goals, it's going to take more folks. So one, folks need to think about how do you bring more folks into the fold? There's a tremendous amount of interest. We're seeing that interest. What we don't always see is the capacity near term, immediately, to do the work. And so we want to see folks that have that experience in doing the work, partnering with those that don't, but doing that in a meaningful way that isn't tokenizing. And those are the things that we dig into to say, okay, how are they coming together? Is this a relationship where there is a knowledge transfer? That a larger entity that's been doing something is doing a knowledge exchange with another group so that they can start doing it in some years' time. And so wanting to see those collaborations come together and seeing really two different groups groups come together that can help strengthen each other up. And I think really seeing those, sometimes we see a lot of coalition proposals and we're like, wait, but the core of it, we need someone that has deep expertise in that core of the thing they're doing. And so it isn't just about the coalitions, but it's the expertise coming together and coming together in a way that is authentic around that knowledge exchange and strengthening each other up.
Yeah, I noticed that the people I know who work in climate policy and economic development that's equitable, they are looking at a lot of European models where collaboration is the norm, and we are not there yet. Yeah. And so I think encouraging people to do that is going to get us closer.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that there is, and this is we've created this. Let me say this, that there is a scarcity mindset that we've got to go in and everyone's got to put in 3 different proposals.
Yes.
And we've got to figure out what are our best shots of getting these resources. And I'll say our team is pretty good at sniffing out what can happen, what can't happen, and where we think that this is going to be really hard to get through in this timeline. And our objective, more than anything, is we want to see the resources spent effectively. And ideally, we want to see some capacity building happening. And so that collaboration is absolutely, really, really critically important in a way that builds us all up.
Well, and you have 1, 2, 3 staff people working on each area to make sure these projects are going
Yep.
well. It's not just like, here's some money,
Yep.
hope it goes well. I mean, there's a dashboard to track progress,
Correct.
and there are dedicated people to make sure that everything is happening and to help people be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always a challenge. I
Yeah.
will acknowledge that.
Yeah.
We have our
Don't
steps,
I know?
as we all do, as we all
Yeah.
do. But at the same end, we are there to help projects happen, and we want to see folks have the right foundation and the footing as they come in the door to give them the best chances to be successful.
What about those smaller grants? You know,
Yes.
what are they called? The
Mini grants.
Mini grants.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good name
Yeah,
for small grants.
yeah.
What are you looking for in those? And what's the amount of mini?
Mini grants are up to $5,000. In many ways, that's where we are willing to take more risk. We want to see organizations come in, propose their ideas. It's not a great investment of time, but it's a way in which, and we've seen that arc from organizations coming in a mini grant, move to a planning grant,
Oh,
and then
that's
come
great.
at a small pilot implementation, and then to a larger implementation grant. We've seen that entire arc, and that's what we want to see. We want to see folks take small risks, learn, partner with others, and continue to grow. And so the mini grants are there. It's more frequent. It's on a quarterly basis, and it's saying, "Hey, come to us with your idea. We want to see that, and we want to fund that, so that you get your foot in the door and move up the ladder."
That's great.
Yeah.
What's an example of one of those really small?
The Rohingya Youth Association came in on a smaller grant and partnered with one of our larger organizations. I think Community Energy Project that's focused on the Rohingya community as well as the Somali community. And that has been an effective partnership where they connected with others through their mini grant, did some basic education in the community, and found partners that could help them learn and grow in the space.
What do you wish people knew about PCEF, the team behind all this work?
One, it's an incredibly, I will say this, I think climate is a motivating force, and you have a team of folks that, one, are committed to climate, committed to racial equity, and just deep experts in their space and their fields. I think seeing folks come together in our team meetings and really workshop and get into scrums on different themes and ideas we're seeing and how to make them possible it's exciting. And they're true navigators of government, meaning that they're willing to show up on our projects, offer that technical expertise, and say, you don't quite have that, or think about that this way, and this is how we can help you make sense of that within a context where you're coming into the city of Portland asking for funding and having to show us a lot of what you're doing and a lot of paperwork to follow through on that and to validate that.
What can we do as a community to help PCEF be successful and remove roadblocks?
I think one, ask good questions, don't jump to conclusions. I think
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing that there's a tremendous amount of interest in climate. There should be. It is here. It is not going to go away, and that interest is incredibly prevalent here within the community. So ask questions around, hey, how can we do this better, and find out who's already working in those spaces, and then elevate those projects that are doing really good.
Yeah.
Because there's a tremendous amount of great work happening. We've funded well over 100 and some odd organizations now. Those projects are spinning out there, and they're probably right next to you, and you don't realize it. And so it's certainly ask questions, lift up those good projects.
And my advice is, I love media, I love journalists, but I hear you all spreading misinformation about PCEF, and like, oh, I don't know where all that money's going. Homie, it's online. Just go to the website. The whole exact breakdown is right there. So cursory research before you tell the public what PCEF is and what it's doing. That's my opinion. You don't have to say.
I will say thank you. And yes, the information's there. We've got loads and loads of information. You click one link, you'll find another. It's all online. So agree, folks. Check out our website.
I want to say to you, Sam, two things that I say behind the scenes. First of all, of all the teams we've worked with in government, especially, but even elsewhere, y'all are the most functional and efficient and high performance team. I feel like your team should be protected at all costs and is a model for how other new programs should come together. It wasn't always that way when we first met. It was definitely that forming stage. But y'all are performing, and it's been an honor to be on the sidelines cheering you on. And then the other thing, and you as a leader, I just think you are a resource that must be protected and I just, there's no one who could be better to be running this.
Appreciate that.
And as much as I want you to do so forever, I also can only imagine the other things you can do in your career. And I'm there to support you along the way. And then the other thing I always say that's more public, and I say this to you all the time, is Portland is a bubble metaphorically, but it's not when it comes to climate.
Yeah.
And that I think the single most important thing that PCEF can do is open source its success so that other cities and municipalities can adopt some of these practices. Because even if we do it perfectly, we're affected by the rest of the world. So hopefully everything that you are piloting becomes something that other people can use.
Yep. Ciara, one, thank you. Appreciate your support this time. And I'm humbled by that. And absolutely, we are not in a bubble. Climate is a global phenomenon. And I will say this PCEF is the most unique asset and resource of any city in the US, of any city globally that exists. And it is a thing to cherish and is a thing that is why Portland can continue and will continue to be a leader in this space. And that leadership is critical for our climate, our community in the future.
The nation's watching. I know when some City of Portland employees go to conferences, everyone's asking about PCEF, and I've even been on the phone with other cities, and they want to know. So thank you again for your leadership, and we can't wait to see what happens next with PCEF.
Thank you.
All right, when we're back, so many parties this weekend. I'll tell you where they're at. There are a bunch of parties and links in the show notes, but I want to tell you about a few of them. First of all, it's Sneaker Week. What's Sneaker Week? It is the celebration of the sneaker industry, sneaker culture, and its influence on sports and everybody else. And so if you want to catch Sneaker Week, just go to sneakerweekpdx.com. A lot of events are happening right in Pioneer Square this weekend, and you definitely want to check that out. There's also satellite events from, tours to DJs. So it is a very cool event. Definitely check it out. Of course, the Olympics are kicking off today, and the place to watch the events is the Sports Bra. They have a schedule up on Instagram of all the different things they'll be streaming. Meanwhile, if you want something totally different, the Mermaid Parade is tomorrow on the waterfront. Always some great people watching. And if you are just loving the civic engagement, the City Club of Portland has a bunch of cool events coming up where you can learn more about the city transition and everything going on in Portland. I'm Ciara Pressler. Thank you so much. And we will be back next week with another awesome Portland leader. Have a great weekend.